Hello, a time when the noise of the day settles and the mind finds its stillness. Welcome to Slow Night Ancient Tales. The story we will share with you today is the first part of the Tale of Lady Pak, a mysterious and extraordinary classic novel set during the Joseon Dynasty. It unfolds the intertwined destiny of Si-baek's family, a man of outstanding talent and virtue, and explores the true inner value hidden beneath mere outward appearances. Let us now journey deep into the mountains, where Taoist magic and fateful encounters that transcend the standards of the mundane world are woven together. Please lean back comfortably and lend us your ears. Paksijun, the Tale of Lady Pak, Part 1. During the reign of King Seonjo of the Eastern Kingdom, there lived a high official in the capital city of Hanyang, whose surname was Lee, and given name was Deok Chun. Having been deeply devoted to his studies since childhood, by the age of 10, his literary skill, talent, and virtue were renowned throughout the country, and his ability to discern human character was extraordinary. He passed the civil service examination at a young age and rose to the first rank of officialdom. He served the state with loyalty and taught the people with benevolence and righteousness, so his authority and reputation shook the four seas. He was brilliant and wise, with a handsome face and an imposing presence, comparable to Dumu. Such a talented individual was truly a famous sage of our Eastern Kingdom. In addition, his mastery of mystic arts was renowned, and he possessed courage that surpassed others, making him truly a hero of the era. He once had an exceptional son beneath his knees. The boy could understand 10 things upon hearing one. His perception surpassed others, and his physical frame was handsome. The high official loved him deeply and named him Si-baek. At this time, the high official enjoyed playing badak and playing the jade flute, but there was no opponent to match him. In solitary moments, when he faced the bright moon and played the jade flute, the wondrous harmony was boundless, and the flowers blooming on the flower bed would fall naturally. Such talent was truly the best in the nation. The high official was grieving because he could not find a worthy match for badak and playing the flute. One day, a certain man dressed in tattered clothes and a worn hat, with a wretched appearance, came to the front of the guest quarters and requested a night's lodging. Looking closely, although his clothes and hat were shabby, his bearing was different from that of an ordinary person. With the high official's clear discernment, how could he fail to recognize such a Taoist master? Furthermore, he thought to himself, if that man were of humble origin, how could he so boldly ascend to the main hall? He is clearly no ordinary person. Thus, he said, I do not know what noble guest you are, but how is it that you have come to such a humble place? With this, he invited him to ascend to the hall. After the man ascended the hall and took his seat, they exchanged names, and the man said, This humble person is a guest without a home. I have traveled seeking famous mountains and grand temples, making friends with Maitreya to pass the years. Now, being advanced in years, after traveling through rivers and mountains, I am staying only at Mount Jumgang, merely waiting for death. My surname is Park, and worldly people call me Chosa, a scholar living in retirement. Hearing the uprightness of his speech, the high official realized he was indeed an immortal. He then straightened his posture, sat solemnly, and spoke respectfully with great reverence. How is it that such a noble guest has deigned to visit this lowly place? The Chosa replied, Living in the mountains, I have only enjoyed playing badak and playing the flute. I heard on the wind that your excellency also enjoys badak and the flute just as I do, so I have come wishing to see. Upon hearing this, the high official's joy at finding a match after grieving for so long without one could not be fully expressed. How could my playing of the flute harmonize with the melody of an immortal? However, even if it is a clumsy pipe, I hope for the noble guest's instruction, so the host shall play first. He then played a melody, and the clear and elegant sound seemed to rise above the clouds. When the sound ceased, the peony flowers before the window fell in clusters, filling the flower bed. Seeing this behavior, the Chosa praised it and said, Having heard only the host's clear and elegant melody, if the guest does not harmonize, it would not be proper etiquette. He then played his jade flute to harmonize. The sound was exceedingly clear and elegant, as if rising to the clear sky. Hearing the sound, blue cranes and white cranes danced, and immortal youths seemed to descend and frolic in front of them. When the sound ceased, the peony clusters that had fallen before the window bloomed again in full splendor. Seeing this behavior, the high official greatly praised him, saying, "Even with clumsy talent like mine, there is no one in the world who does not praise it. Yet when I played my pipe, only the flower clusters fell, whereas when the immortal plays the pipe, phoenixes fly in, and the fallen flowers burst into full bloom again. Even the melody of Zhang Liang of old could not compare to this." Following this, the host and guest played baduk and harmonized with flutes to pass the days. One day, the Chosa requested the high official, saying, "I have heard that your excellency has a precious son, so I request to see him." When the high official called Si-baek, he accepted the command and came out. The Chosa looked closely and saw he was a hero of all ages and a champion of the era. Furthermore, considering the destiny of Joseon, he possessed the air of one who would become a great general and a state minister in the future. Unable to contain his inner joy, he requested the high official, saying, "The reason this humble person has sought out your excellency is none other than to entrust a certain matter to you." The official replied, "What kind of matter do you wish to entrust?" The Chosa said, "This humble person has a daughter, but even though her age has reached twice 16, she has not yet settled her marriage. Therefore, I have been traveling across the 4 seas to find a match. Fortunately, arriving at your noble house and seeing your precious son, it accords with my heart. Although my daughter is dull and clumsy, she is worthy of being accepted into your noble family. Though it is presumptuous, how about arranging a betrothal?" The high official thought to himself, "Since the Chosa's virtue and spiritual power are like that, how could his child not be clever?" He then replied, "You are an immortal, and I am a person of the vulgar world. How can an immortal marry a person of the world?" The Chosa replied, "Your excellency is of the first rank in the nation, and I am a lowly person. Proposing a marriage to a noble family is highly inappropriate, but if you do not reject it, my gratitude will be boundless." The high official immediately consented to the marriage, and the Chosa was also delighted and immediately chose the wedding date, which was the middle of the 3rd lunar month. After finalizing the marriage agreement, they brought out wine and side dishes to offer each other. They passed the time playing baduk on the cool breeze pavilion and playing the flute outside the bright moon window. One day, the Chosa said farewell and announced his departure. They could not bear to part and felt desolate, but since they had to separate, they parted, and the Chosa returned to the mountains. At this time, the high official gathered his clansmen and told them the story of the betrothal to Chosa Park's daughter. His wife and the clansmen doubted and said, "Marriage is a great affair of human life and the most important of human relations. How can a noble family rashly permit it without even knowing the person's background?" The high official smiled and said, "I allowed it because I know Chosa Park's daughter's talent and virtue are renowned in this world, so do not argue needlessly." At this time, when the wedding day arrived, they prepared the wedding goods, led the servants, and set out on the journey. The high official became the primary guest and took Si-baek with him. Si-baek wore his official robes and rode a fine horse with a golden saddle. The spectacle of their departure toward Mount Gungang showed the bought, fine presence of a youthful hero, and their equipment was splendid. At such an auspicious event, the clansmen mocked them, and the discussions at court were clamorous. After several days of traveling through rivers and mountains, the scenery was beautiful, and the time happened to be mid-spring. Looking around at the mountains and streams on the left and right, all kinds of flowers were in full bloom. Butterflies and bees fluttered about, dancing as they saw the flowers, and the golden orioles on the drooping willow branches sang beautifully. Admiring the scenery, they advanced gradually, but signs of human presence grew quiet, and they walked aimlessly. Having no choice, they sought an inn to rest and set out again the next day. As they entered the mountain valleys, there was no sign of human presence. Craggy cliffs soared into the mid-air, and streams flowed gently through the valleys. The cuckoos wept sorrowfully, as if mocking the bewildered travelers, and the nightingales wept sorrowfully, as if aiding those with troubled hearts. When the high official thought about his own situation, it seemed rather absurd. Regret was of no avail. Furthermore, as the sun set, they wandered in the mountains, birds returned to the forest, and the moon rose from the east. Having no choice, they sought an inn again to rest. The next day, as they entered the mountain valleys, the paths in the deep mountains and remote valleys were cut off, and there was no one in sight. Their strength was exhausted, and their hunger and thirst were severe. They took their seats upon a rock and leaned against an old pine tree, lamenting, "Thinking of my situation, it is as if I have come seeking Master Wolong amidst the wind and snow at Nanyang Cottage, or seeking Boyi and Shuki in the deep places of Mount Shoyang." As he was lamenting his own absurdity, suddenly voices echoed through the valley, and dozens of woodcutter boys came down. The high official joyfully said, "You boys going over there, listen to my words for a moment. What place is this, and where is an inn? How about guiding the bewildered heart of a traveler?" A woodcutter boy replied, "This mountain is Mount Gumgang. This path leads to the valley where Chosa Park used to live, and we are coming from that valley right now." The official asked, "Is the Chosa staying at his house now?" The woodcutter boy replied, "The old people said that Chosa Park lived here hundreds of years ago, making a dwelling out of old trees and planting trees to eat the fruit, and his title was Chosa Park." He further replied, "We do not know where he went by chance, but hearing that he lives here now is something we hear for the first time." He asked again, "How many years has it been since the Chosa lived in that place?" The woodcutter boy smiled and replied, "They say it has been 400 years since he lived there." After that, no matter how much more he asked, they did not answer and walked away. Hearing these words, the high official was even more dumbfounded. He laughed toward heaven and lamented, "There are many absurd things in the world." He could not stop sighing and said, "The arrow has left the bow." Having no choice, he returned to the inn with his servants to stay. Si-baek also comforted his father, saying, "In the past, Emperor Wu of Han also sought immortals, but ultimately could not find them, only to regret it in vain in the spring breeze. No matter what we do, it is useless, so returning home is the best course." The high official laughed and said, "What is done. Even if we just return, we cannot avoid being mocked by others. Tomorrow is the day of presenting the wedding gifts, so we must inevitably search for him tomorrow." The next day, leading his servants, he hastened his journey again and searched while wandering through the mountains until midday. At that time, around noon, a man wearing a brown headcloth and rustic clothes, holding a bamboo staff, wearing hemp shoes, and carrying a white feather fan, came out of the valley. His appearance was truly that of an upright Taoist master. Rubbing his eyes in joy and looking again, it was clearly Chosa Park. The Chosa saw the high official and greeted him joyfully. "Because of a person like me, you have spent several days in the deep mountains and remote valleys, causing your mind and stomach excessive distress, which makes me deeply apologetic." The high official smiled, and they conversed. As they entered the mountains together with Chosa Park, the time happened to be the 3rd lunar month. All kinds of flowers were in full bloom, and the fragrance of flowers spread far and wide. Butterflies and bees fluttered, seeming to rejoice at the sight of the flowers. The old pines drooped, and the willows bore the colors of spring, while golden orioles flew back and forth as if searching for the willow camps, singing songs that seemed to mock the absurd people. The high official felt as if he had left the vulgar world and entered a land of immortals. The Chosa addressed the high official, saying, "This humble person is originally poor and has no proper guest room, so please take a seat upon the rock for a moment." He cleanly swept the stone terrace beneath a towering pine tree and offered him a seat. The high official sat on the stone terrace and related the severe hardships he faced from not meeting for dozens of days, and they conversed together. The Chosa said, "In such a remote mountain valley, we cannot fully observe the proper etiquette, which makes me filled with awe and shame, but let us simplify the wedding ceremony." He then arranged the wedding arena. The high official came out to the ceremonial mat with Si-baek. After the two performed the Jeonan ritual, presenting the wooden wild goose, the Chosa guided them into the inner quarters. The high official went out and sat on the stone terrace. After a short while, the Chosa came out, brought pine blossom wine, and said, "There is no special delicacy in the mountains, so please do not take offense." After offering several cups, he fed the servants in order and offered wine to the high official again. The wine was strong and made him drowsy. After the time it takes to eat a meal, he woke up to find that the day had already dawned. He called for the Chosa and said, "The wine I drank yesterday was truly not a wine of the human world. It was indeed the wine of immortals." The Chosa laughed and said, "Did a single cup of pine blossom wine make you so intoxicated?" The high official replied, "A single cup of an immortal's fine wine was truly excessive for me." They conversed, and when he requested to depart that day, the Chosa said, "The paths in these mountains are dangerous, so take my daughter with you for good on this journey." The high official readily agreed, "Let us do so." As they prepared for the journey, the bride's face was covered with a silk veil, concealing her entire body from view so that she could not be seen. The Chosa said to the high official, "Let us meet again after you take her with you." After parting reluctantly, the high official took the bride and came out of the valley entrance. As the sun set over the western mountains, they sought an inn and entered. When the three of them, the high official, the bride, and Si-baek, entered a single room, the bride removed the silk veil that had covered her face. Only then did the high official and Si-baek see the bride's face for the first time. Setting aside her figure, her face was pitted with pockmarks, and her ugliness was such that blemishes were clustered in streaks. Her eyes were like the holes of snail shells. Her nose was like a treacherous rock in a deep mountain valley. Her forehead was overly receded like that of the southern pole old man. Her ears were over 8 feet long, one arm was drooping, and one leg was lame. She was a truly grotesque and misshapen sight, unbearable to behold. As soon as the high official and Si-baek saw her, their minds were thrown into turmoil, and having no desire to face her, they passed the night somehow. Hurrying on their way, they arrived at the capital and entered their residence. Their relatives and the high official's wife had gathered to catch a glimpse of the bride. When the bride descended from the wedding litter and entered the side room and removed the silk veil that covered her face, she was a grand spectacle of a bizarre creature. The women who saw her said it was the first time they had ever seen such a sight, looking at each other and pouring out endless sarcasm and mockery. On this day, far from being a joyous occasion, the household seemed to have met with disaster. In the midst of the family's consternation, the official's wife reproached the high official, saying, "There are plenty of gentle and beautiful ladies from noble families in the capital, so why did you go all the way into the mountains to bring back such a monstrously ugly and hideous thing, making us the laughingstock of others?" The high official countered sharply, "No matter how peerlessly beautiful a woman you choose to be your daughter-in-law, if she lacks virtue, the household will be ruined, and the family line cannot be preserved. Even if a person's appearance is ugly, if she possesses virtue, the family will prosper and enjoy blessings. Wife, why do you speak so rashly? Although the daughter-in-law's face is ugly, she surely possesses virtue in dealing with matters. Heaven has aided us to obtain such a daughter-in-law, yet you speak such words without discernment. Never speak of this again." The wife, still harboring resentment and shame, replied, "Whether our child's clothes and appearance are fitting or not determines the rise and fall of our household, so what is there to worry about?" The high official spoke again, "That may be so, but wife, be careful not to mistreat her. If you dislike her even more, how can our son live in harmony with her?" Thus he did not cease to admonish her. Lady Pak, who appeared in a bizarre and hideous form so completely different from all expectations, and Si-baek and his family, who were thrown into a state of profound shock. Her true face, hidden beneath the splendid wedding garments, seems to have cast a dark shadow over the entire household. What kind of turbulent destiny will this unbelievable encounter forge in the days to come? We hope you look forward to the second part of the Tale of Lady Pak in our next episode, to discover when her genuine virtue and wisdom will finally shine through the cold gazes of the world. As the night deepens, we hope you enjoy a peaceful rest alongside the profound and lingering resonance that these classic tales provide. Slow Night, Ancient Tales bids you farewell for today. Have a restful night.